What if the secret to a sharper mind and less stress isn't just willpower, but your daily habits?
Social isolation can be harmful as smoking 15 cigarettes per day. Lifestyle factors, they do play a huge role in prevention. World Health Organization is saying that we could prevent 80% of them. We're seeing a lot of these diseases in younger and younger generations. Nutrition has changed tremendously in the past 100 years, and that's a very small time in human evolution, and our bodies and minds simply cannot handle that.
Welcome to Decisions That Count. I'm neuroscientist Dr. Shawn Watson. Today, we're going to dissect the mind-body blueprint and how conscious decisions in 6 key areas can fundamentally rewire our brain for better resilience.
And I'm Michelle O'Brien. Our guest, Dr. Miina Öhman, is a medical doctor, a PhD scientist who is a leader in lifestyle medicine.
And today, we're going to explore the science behind the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine and how consistent decisions in these areas can combat decision fatigue and help us build profound cognitive resilience.
Dr. Miina, welcome to Decisions That Count. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for the invitation. Pleasure to be here.
Great. I think we've set this up a little bit in the beginning, but I think let's go straight into it. So what are the 6 core pillars of health?
So the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine are obviously nutrition and physical activity or exercise, restorative sleep, positive social connections, or connectedness. Actually, it can be not only horizontal, like to other people, but also vertical connections, and avoidance or minimizing risky substances, and stress management.
I think I would have only got 4 out of those. I don't think I would have got the social connection, and what was the one after connection?
Avoidance of harmful substances.
Yeah, which is obviously now both incredibly obvious. But if you'd have asked me to list 6, I think I would have missed those 2 off.
Yeah. There's really a lot more science now from the past few decades showing actually how social isolation can be harmful for health. It's as harmful as smoking 15 cigarettes per day. So this is one of the key studies, yes, showing the effect. So usually, if you think about times like COVID, that created a massive trial about social isolation and their harmful effects. And it can be seen in children for long periods of time, when they are isolated from other human connections. Yeah, for sure. So it also modifies our brain function. Not everyone will feel isolated if they are alone. But if you are left alone and you are not comfortable with that, then it will be harmful because it's been a survival mechanisms for humans during the evolution to be in a group. So when we are isolated from a group, then we feel very vulnerable, and it's a huge stress factor. It can be a huge stress factor.
I'd love to deep dive into this pillar actually. Because, Shawn, you've told me a little bit before about kind of with your work in Alzheimer's and that need for human connection. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reiterates what Dr. Miina was saying. We've known about the component of loneliness and isolation. Usually how I talk about it, though, is especially out west, we would, as we age, then we put people away in a community and an old age home outside of the city, and we thought that we were doing the right thing, right? And then we see the spike of all these different dementias, and they lose purpose and whatnot. Whereas you look at other systems, like even in Japan, and they actually have like an aged care center with cohabiting kindergarten. So actually, instead of isolation, it's like all these old age people, and they get to kind of babysit the kids in the kindergarten, right? So I think in Western style, we were just so off base, and it led to this discovery. Well, of many things did of this social connection, and it's very important too. And I'm sure we're going to dive deep into it. Is like psychology and physiology are so related. I sometimes get frustrated by it because psychology is such a difficult science, but it is a very important component to connect the two. That's something that we've known about, and we were just in the West, we had such a misstep compared to Eastern practices. What's really interesting to me, just how you describe it, Dr. Miina, too, is like lifestyle medicine. But to me, it's just like it's just medicine. But it seems like, again, in the West, we've just highlighted drugs, right? Like if you come with high blood pressure, here's your drug for high blood pressure. It's not about why you have high blood pressure. It's just here's your treatment for the condition. Whereas those 6 pillars you described is like more getting at the root of a lot of these chronic conditions, I suppose.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And that's why I got interested in lifestyle medicine in the first place, like really deep diving to the root, like what is causing all these chronic diseases that World Health Organization is saying that we could prevent 80% of them, of, cardiometabolic diseases like diabetes, heart disease, and even 40% of cancers could be prevented if we just really focused on healthy diet and, all those pillars that I just mentioned. Lifestyle factors, they do play a huge role in prevention. Mm-hmm. And now that the Western countries all struggle with aging populations, I mean, obviously age is one of the risk factors for all the chronic diseases, but we're seeing a lot of these diseases in younger and younger generations. Cancer and definitely cardiometabolic diseases like type 2 diabetes or like prediabetes or fatty liver disease, which is one of the, even before prediabetes develops, is insulin resistance. So these conditions, hypertension is very prevalent also in younger populations. So really, why is it happening? There are multiple reasons, but definitely our lifestyles have changed. Nutrition has changed tremendously in the past 100 years. And that's a very small time in human evolution. And our bodies and minds simply cannot handle that. So it starts to manifest as these diseases.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, just a thought, just on the social component too. Are there any studies? Because as the world is progressing, like I don't know if those social connections are, like there's no clear pathway to more human connection, but it seems to be moving online a lot. Obviously, it's social media and everything. Is there any studies that like that type of social connection is positive? Like can that substitute genuine human connection to some degree? I'm not aware of any research, so I don't know if there is.
So this specific area, I'm not as expert either, but there are some studies saying that, for example, for teen mental health, it can be beneficial if they have some way familiar to them to get help, for example, or discuss with someone. Obviously, because this is the generation that grew up with their phones and screens, and so it's not all harmful. But then again, there is a lot of literature also, I think, more showing the harmfulness of a lot of screen time and the lack of real human connections and lack of the actual practice how to connect with other human beings. If your only connections are through internet and through social media, it can be very shallow. And what I'm very worried about with young people is that when they enter the working world now, a lot of the jobs are just remote, right? You just work online. And how do you actually interact with people in a workplace? How do you build the teams and get to know your coworkers? It's very difficult. So I think it would be much better if young people could actually start their careers the old-fashioned way, going to workplaces and work with real humans next to next, sitting and having conversations and all that, like getting the guidance and help. And I mean, I've seen this in my own kids who are college-age kids, and their first internships and workplace. If they are just remote, it's very like, okay, how am I supposed to do it? How do I know if my boss likes my work or not?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges is, and friends see this in businesses that they run, is that you have a lot of young people on the team, but they also, they don't want to come in. They want to work remote. They're comfortable at home. There's also anxiety about going into an office. That kind of actually feels very like overwhelming. I think there can be a bit of a frustration as well from like leaders of the business because, well, they need to be in, they need to learn. They're going to be learning from, the mid and the senior people within the business, especially if you're like running a creative business and, which requires maybe more critical thinking. And so there's this real tension, I think, sometimes, like, and we spoke about it when we had the podcast with Holly, who is this incredible kind of Gen Z financial activist, you know, where it looks, you know, you've kind of got an older generation getting frustrated with the younger generation because it seems like they don't want to come in and they don't want to work and they don't want to, whereas like maybe the younger generation are kind of setting a little bit more boundaries and saying, I want to work from home, or I want to, you know. So it's quite interesting that you know, it actually is for their own good, you know, to come in and engage in real life. But with that comes a lot of anxiety.
I agree with that. I mean, people are different. Like, you know, we were just talking about introverts and extroverts earlier. Like introverts would be, you know, likely less stressed if they have their own space and own privacy and not so much with, you know, interaction with people that can actually drain their energy a lot.
Yeah.
But then again, they also need that. They need to learn that, because in order to survive in a society, you have to deal with all kinds of people. And it's just easier to learn that when you're younger.
I'd love to understand the impact to health of having maybe poor connection.
Poor connections or social isolation, or you know, non-supportive human connections. It does create the, you know, chronic stress in human body. And chronic stress is really a risk factor, like we discussed, for many chronic diseases. First of all, if you think about the stress reaction in the body, when it started in the, you know, there's a meaning and purpose for it in the evolutionary lens, looking through that. When we need to, you know, fight or flight, escape some, you know, lions, it's really useful to have that, because stress reaction will make you run faster. It gets, you know, the glucose pumped to the bloodstream, so you have energy for your muscles to run. It improves your immunity for a short period of time. And if you get wounded and dirty wounds with fighting with the lion, you know, it will help you to clot the bleeding faster. When all these physiological effects become chronic, it's actually very draining for our body. And then also just that stimulation for the brain as well. Like if we, especially you mentioned the older people, like if they're just isolated in elderly care homes, they don't see like young kids or like live in their life. But just other older people, you know, they may be demented. So the amount of stimulation, the amount of occasions that they can actually work or put their brains to, you know, get that stimulation is diminished for sure. So it can definitely lead to more rapid deterioration of the conditions as well.
Yeah, I think just people need to, like, when it comes to the brainy part of the body, like it's always important to go back to evolution, right? Like why a lot of the problems we are where we are today is because there's a mismatch between how the brain was evolved to where society currently is. And certainly social, like the human brain was evolved for social connection. Like humanity succeeded in the African savannah because of social connection, right? Those tribes. So our wiring is literally built for that social components, right? And if you get this mismatch, or to your lion story, which I always tell a similar analogy, actually, like that system evolved for a purpose, that like hardcore response. But now people are getting that same massive stress response on the drive to work, like every single day, because they're scared, anxiety for their boss or whatever it is, right? And this is the mismatch. It was a system designed for acute, short-term changes in your environment, and now people get it every single day. Another analogy, maybe just for some of our listeners you can think of too, it's like your car and you're on the highway and you need to hit the gas to pass somebody, right? Like the potential's there to make it happen. But if you run that engine on max RPM all the time, it damages the system, right? You're going to see the system start to break down. And that's just what's happening in the body, or certainly the brain for sure.
I wonder if there's, I kind of personal question, but there's an addiction to that though. Because I think I'm very like, I love being always on. I love being busy. Like there's an excitement that comes with being in that state. And I thrive in that. And so I wonder if there's an addiction to that.
not my field.
I mean, for sure. I mean, our brain structures are a little bit different, and they're wired differently, and different amount, like proportions of brain chemistry that dominate in each one's brains is different. And again, the extroverts versus introverts, but there's much more tones to those. But yeah, it's and then like addiction scale, usually, third of the people are very prone to become addicted to something. The middle third is like, can go either way. And then 1/3, this is rough, but, usually would not get addicted to anything. The addiction really is, you really want something to soothe your own whatever it is that you have to fill, either in your brain or in your soul. And, or you have to, shield yourself also from maybe something painful too, that you don't want to feel. So really, if you have been like alcoholic, usually these people, if they get rid of that, they find something else that they really have to latch on and get the same response. But addiction, I would say that some people are definitely how do they call it? Adrenaline junkies or dopamine junkies it's and different people get the required or desired amount of stimulation for different things. 100%.
And I'm going to do something which I never always try to avoid, is like dip a toe in psychology. But like, I think addiction too is when it starts, when the behavior starts to interrupt your daily life, right? Like when it starts to have a negative impact on daily living, then it'll be more of an addiction, right? Whereas like, if you're running every single morning, like addicted to it, but it's not the same as like, a destructive habit of drinking or something like that, right? Yeah. So I think addiction is from psychology, as I understand it, it can be more of the negative terms versus if it's not actively harming you, I suppose. Again, psychology, like I'm gonna be flamed online probably for this.
But it's addiction is a very strong word. We should probably shouldn't use it inappropriately. Yeah. But also, like, I would say that there are some addictions that are societally more acceptable than others, and there's a lot of stigma with some addictions, if we call them that way, than others. I mean, workaholism can be one addiction, and it can give you really great rewards, but it can be really an addiction too. So I
think that's the worry though, is it's like I'm thriving, but what damage am I doing to my health if I'm not giving myself the time, my body and my brain time to actually stop?
And the problem is a lot of things happen faster in society, and the science takes a long time to catch up, right? Like cigarettes, alcohol, right? Like those were normal addictions accepted by society that everybody did for a long period of time, and only after a while did we realize the health consequences. So with a busy lifestyle today, I wouldn't be surprised if a decade from now people are like, oh wow, like this causes XYZ health conditions because you're chronically stressed, you're worried, you're too busy, you're not taking. Before this podcast, we were talking about like in academia, things are slower. You go for walks in nature. It's more introspective. So maybe
that was like when you work in marketing, it's like,
So I think we're going to learn a lot about it. It's just so fast right now. The world right now is completely different than 5 years ago, right?
Oh, yeah.
Whereas in the in the 20th century or before, like you could go 50 years and it was pretty much the same, right? Like the difference between my parents and my grandparents, their life was pretty similar. But now it's a generation can be considered 10 years or 5 years, right? It's just so quick. So
we're going to talk a little bit about the human connection pillar just before we move on to the next one. You mentioned horizontal and vertical connection. Could you just explain the difference?
So horizontal connection is obviously with your peers, with other human beings. So that's the social. Usually people think about the positive social connections, other human beings that can be supportive in your life. So the other connectedness that belongs to lifestyle medicine as a pillar is obviously people's like sense of purpose, having faith, having something greater than yourself. And these can be very, very important elements in your life. Also, like you may not feel as isolated or as lonely if you have something in your life that you feel is greater than yourself, and you have a purpose, or you serve something bigger than yourself. So there is a research done on these, like usually also on like a happiness scale, like people who may have fate, or in Japan they would call it ikigai, that had that, your purpose and meaning, like why do you wake up every morning, what to do, what, like it's clear to you why you're doing it. So this can be very beneficial for human health as well.
I do want to take one step back though, just because I think the 6 pillars, I think our guests will need to understand a bit more, because we introduced you as an MD-PhD, which is, I think people need to unpack that just a bit to understand. So a PhD is like the researchers. They help to like build tools and build a toolbox of understanding, or of procedures, protocols, drugs, whatever you want to do. They're the researchers. And then the physician part is obviously implementing the toolkit, understanding what tools to use when, and bringing the real kind of human component to all of that. There's quite often a disconnect between those two schools of thought. So quite often you'll have researchers who are the introverts, and they sit in their lab, like I used to do, in the basement doing experiments, and you try to develop solutions and tools, but they may not always apply to the physician, right? Or they may have trouble implementation or whatnot. Or the physician struggles with, dealing with patients, and they don't understand the toolkit available to them. These pillars that we've talked about, the 6 lifestyle pillars, scientifically we know it, right? Like the science is very solid on those pillars. But if you put on your physician hat, how can they make the decision to implement this? Or what's like that emotional toil they go through? How can, maybe if we can just double dive a bit on that, if just the physician side, what's the biggest struggle you see with people to implement some of these changes in their life? These lifestyle changes that the science is so clear is beneficial. What's stopping people from doing it or from changing?
First, let me start with the physicians. The modern medical system, modern medical industry is definitely geared towards pharmaceutical treatments, not looking at the root cause of diseases, and not really putting the money to the prevention. Now, already 20 years ago, there are studies showing that 80 to 90% of people's health outcomes actually are dependent of things happening outside of doctor's office. And where does the money go? To doctor's office, in medical industry, in research, right? To those, development of the pharmaceuticals. Also, the medical system is very much geared, the incentives are geared towards, how doctors make their living in today's systems are that, they must be prescribed these drugs, all the pills and procedures, and this is really the current way of how system works. And it's very difficult to function outside of that, system. So lifestyle medicine is very much like, you talked about psychology, but it's very much motivating, using motivational interviewing with patients, spending much more time actually for the consultation rather than just prescribing the pills, like creating the connection with the patients, explaining a lot of things. But it's not only educational, it's really trying to help people take ownership of their own health, because all these 6 pillars require health behavior change, and the patient is like equally important in their own care than the doctor, obviously, right? Doctors usually want to think they are they're the only ones needed, but no, actually the patient has if they want to take ownership of their health, they can gain huge benefits down the road. But to evoke this and to really allow this care model to be like patient-centered and patient-led is very different from what is taught in medical schools, what is taught after, medical doctors, after they graduate from med schools, like how do they get the ongoing continuous medical education. A lot of that is sponsored by Big Pharma. And there's not enough of studies actually comparing using these lifestyle medicine pillars like exercise and diet compared to the different drugs. For example, for depression, there's now, fortunately, more studies. There's done some studies for hypertension or high blood pressure, like exercise, but the exercise is as effective as some drugs. So, yeah, it can be. And also for depression, exercise can be very effective, equally as, if not even more, than drugs for depression. So when do the medical doctors hear about this? When do the patients hear about these studies? It's very rare. So it really requires the physician to change the mindset, looking at just outside the, huge book of drugs and selecting what would be the best thing. But also requires mindset now for patients to really understand that if they take the ownership, if they want to do something, it can have tremendous effect. Like getting this internal motivation that is usually the most difficult thing to, they're so used to that. Okay, I go to a doctor gives me, I want to pay for the pills and procedures, and that will fix me, and it's a quick fix. The other things that require health behavior change or habit changing in your behavior, it's much more difficult to start to do, right? It's it requires a little bit like new identity, new ways of thinking, new ways of doing, and a lot of people can feel quite helpless or if they don't. Usually important is to give hope that you can actually do it, like believe in yourself, you can do it, start small, take small steps, and then all the self-efficacy and feeling of autonomy that comes from it, very important. And then finding the other people like you, similar, your peers. If you find the people who are on the same journey, it will be very helpful. You can share the learning and experience, and you can cheer each other. So to use the power of the group and the connections that we create and keep us, cheering us and finding the, the support. It's shared medical appointment is really good for lifestyle medicine because doctor would require more time than in a usual consultation of 10-15 minutes to, first of all, go through everything that is important, those 6 pillars, and then allowing to, individually address every patient's concerns and their, specifically like is it the high blood pressure for you or high blood glucose for you? The beauty in lifestyle medicine is it's applicable for very different kind of patient populations because everyone will benefit from the healthy lifestyle. All these chronic diseases at the cellular level, they share the same metabolic mayhem or metabolic substrate. And the healthy lifestyle, the pillars really synergize to work against those deleterious effects of unhealthy habits. So the shared medical appointments is something that patients, like group of patients, like let's say 10 to 12 usually, meet with the doctor and maybe a group facilitator, maybe an allied health professional can be there or a nurse. And it's educational. It's also one-on-one connection with the healthcare providers during that 90-minute appointment. And then all this discussion that is created in the group. So it's something that I would want to bring to Singapore as well as a president of the Singapore Society of Lifestyle Medicine. That I would want to see that happen here as well.
No, I'm a huge proponent of it, and I think just again for our listeners, kind of the first thing to note is the science is powerful. I think it's maybe people sometimes be like, oh, exercise, like I know it's good for me, but like wait, it treats depression, right? Like the science is there to show it's as or more effective than conditions like that. And then like the side effects of it, right? There's always side effects coming with pharmaceuticals, right? Especially like antidepressant drugs. We call them selective, serotonin or whatever, but they're not selective. They're messy drugs with hardcore side effects. Side effect of a healthy lifestyle is you get more fit, you're happier, right? Like, so there's such a big benefit. Maybe the third point, just to ask this question is because that's only context of maybe treatment of whatever underlying condition. How about building resilience? So either cognitive or just general body resilience of helping to prevent conditions from happening in the first place. What do you see kind of on that front?
So resilience multiple levels, like, for example, a better immune system, right? You would need to sleep enough, right? Because, poor sleep is immediate, has immediate negative effect on your immune system. And then, exercising that will definitely help you build a better immune system as well. And nutrition can have very big effect also, whether you are getting all your vitamins and minerals and precursors for your neurotransmitters and omega-3 fatty acids for brain health. We talked about how do you actually reset from the stress, like find that balance. In different people, it's the different amount of time spent in nature or spent on your own, a quiet environment and gathering all that. I think if you stretch the system too much, you pressure too much, and the level of tolerance is different for different people. It's the ability to bounce back to like homeostatic systems in biology, right? You can go one direction, but in homeostasis, you pretty much always are, asked to come back to balance. When we are getting older, this ability to bounce back to homeostatic levels is lost gradually. And this also relates to disease mechanisms at the cellular level, accumulation of more toxins and inefficient pathways in mitochondria and so forth. We can try to improve the system in the way that we do give them stress a little bit, but not too much. So it's the old saying, like, everything that doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It does apply, to some extent for a lot of things. And we can do this with different things. So exercise is one. So we do, really exert our body. And then afterward, it's, you grow your muscles, you get stronger, you get better, VO2 max and that kind of stuff. And with nutrients, actually, when we're eating a lot of whole plant foods that have those biochemical compounds that plants actually use to fight against their enemies like viruses and bacteria, we also benefit from those, stimulating our system, giving all the great things. We talked about vitamins, minerals, but polyphenols, anthocyanins, all those compounds are very, very important for our health and brain health as well.
It's not just treating a condition, it also prevents a disease or a condition, right? And I think that's really important, whereas a pharmaceutical drug is treatment, it's not helping you to necessarily prevent it from occurring.
Yeah,
right?
A lot of pharmaceuticals, like they're built to because researchers discovered a symptom of a disease. And then they started targeting that symptom, but not really looking or not being able to actually understand what was the original cause of this symptom a little bit.
No, it's a great point. I think even in Alzheimer's work, we're seeing, is my belief, the whole amyloid story between Alzheimer's is, again, we're looking at the runny nose. We're not targeting the cold, right?
Yes.
And that's the big thing. But it seems to, obviously I focus on the brain, but it always seems to come back inflammation. It just seems to be stress, inflammation. Those two are so interwound anyways, but it seems to be this root cause of inflammation just keeps coming up.
Can I ask a question? How do you know when your body's got inflammation?
What part of your body?
If all of my kind of 6 lifestyle pillars are all maybe a little bit off, and how do I know if I'm walking around my internal organs have got inflammation? How do I know?
In a research world, there's many more markers that are used, but usually in doctor's office, the most commonly used is the C-reactive protein or high sensitivity CRP. So this is one of the markers, and then usually if you know that you have some of those like prediabetes or fatty liver disease or metabolically associated hepatosteatosis, whatever it's called in science now, and you can be pretty sure that you have chronic inflammation. If you're obese, you have obesity, then for sure your body has chronic inflammation. There are some signs that are related to inflammation as well, that all of us know that when we're getting an infection, we get tired. So feeling tired before the fever starts, even we can feel we're tired, and definitely when we have fever, we are much more tired than usually, right? So being tired is one sign. It's one in the evolution. It was a way to tell our body that you need to rest and use your energy to recover yourself from the infection, right? So what are we doing in today's world? We are not listening to our body. Like, oh, I'm just feeling tired.
Yeah.
Okay, I just drink more coffee. I just take the painkillers. I just,
You squared dark chocolate before we do the podcast.
Yes. So we're not allowing ourselves to really rest and gather, our immune system to work and do its job. And if you wake up and you're still feeling tired, then definitely, obviously you may have not slept well, but you can be under a really constant chronic inflammation.
Yeah, I totally agree. What's important too is like that feeling tired. Like this is like a neurological response. So again, not psychology, like pro-oxidative shifts in the brain, inflammatory responses are very coincided with pro-oxidative shifts. So like the oxidation state within our neurons change, and there's literally like mechanisms of action. So like our brain communicates through electrical signals, and those electrical signals rely on very specific proteins in each of our neurons. But like small oxidative changes will change the electrical activity. So like the feeling of sleep or what have you is like this is actually a physiological response in your brain given the internal environment. We talk about decision fatigue a lot, right? Mm. And decision fatigue is again a physiological switch that hits when biochemically your brain makes too many decisions, the synapse becomes overwhelmed, and you see a downregulation of a certain enzyme that causes your brain to be like, oh, too many decisions, I need to make a different response now, right? So it's, just really important as this is not just psychological, it's actually like something in your brain is saying you're tired now, like, or what have you with being sick. So inflammation changes how your brain actually communicates within your brain, the communication changes when you have inflammation. Okay. Not psychology, physiology, like an actual biological change. So like brain fog, feeling sleepy, like a lot of those things, it's not, and sometimes people, it's like a personal psychological failing they feel, but like, no, if your body is unhealthy and inflamed, there's mechanisms in your brain at a micro cell, like smaller than a cell, right? You're talking like the smallest parts actually have slight alterations that will change things.
I always just thought it was the body. Like I always just thought, oh, I'm just feeling tired. Like I never once thought it's
well, of course there's being physically tired, like your muscles are after a marathon, your muscles don't work, right? But like I think we're referring to like that sense of or fog, right? Or just when your brain's not functioning as well as you feel. And the thing is with inflammation is we look at these brains and stuff and it's just chronic signaling.
Yeah.
And your brain's isolated from your body too, right? So a lot of like infections and stuff, the molecules don't, like the viruses don't actually enter the brain. It's all through signaling, right? Unless something really bad happens. So your brain's constantly getting feedback from how the body is. So if the body's unhealthy, your brain will make there's mechanisms to change behavior.
How can these 6 pillars help us make better decisions around our health? Like how can we use these 6 pillars?
I think first to understand, if you want to start improving your health and prevent disease in the future, start with any of those pillars that you feel make most sense to you. And because it can be overwhelming to think that, it's all these areas in life I need to focus and try to improve. And it depends on the people, how they want to go about it. Once you start with something, it's a virtuous cycle that you can start, having more energy, having better mood, and making wiser decisions on other pillars, like, let's say, risky substances. So giving you an example, if you start prioritizing your sleeping better, having restorative sleep, you are not as prone or attracted to junk food or ultra-processed foods. There are studies showing this. So then automatically it can be that your diet starts to improve in like quality. That there are some general rules, let's say, for the 6 pillars, like how much people should exercise, like 150 minutes each week. And I would say maybe start where you're at. And build on that. And then for nutrition, really focusing on whole plant predominant diets, whole food plant predominant diets. There's a lot of data out there showing that people should actually eat more plant proteins than animal proteins. also good for our planet. The sleep quality also matters a lot. So it's not just the time spent in bed, but like, so that the sleep actually is restorative. So that's the main component, because once we have enough deep sleep, there's like deep sleep is like this washing machine effect for your brains. Like it's a glymphatic system or lymphatic system of the brain called glymphatic system that washes our brains of toxins of the day that has been, toxins accumulate every day. And then obviously avoiding risky substances as much as possible. Today, the science says that there's no safe level of alcohol. So every time you drink, just keep that in mind if you want to take that risk. And needless to say about tobacco, we all know about it, or other, drugs, street drugs, illegal drugs. And then positive social connectedness. So it's not the number, but it's the quality of the connections. So we already talked about the vertical connections and horizontal connections. It really is the quality, not the number. And different amount of people in different people. It's like you should know what is enough for you. What else? There's stress management, right? So really try to evaluate: is this my balance? If you have the feelings that something is too much, too overwhelming, this is not serving your purpose, then step back and think, like, what can I do? Like, can I actually start to practice some deep breathing? And there's millions of different things in today's society that people can try and find their own ways of handling stress, managing it, like, so that it becomes to the level that is only building resilience and not being like too much, too overwhelming and actually deteriorating.
Over 3 years ago, I stopped drinking. It was having, even 1 or 2 glasses of wine was having such an impact on all of those other pillars, and I couldn't see it. And that's a whole other episode on the culturally and social, what's culturally and socially expected and acceptable.
Yeah.
But I just could not believe the impact that had. Within 6 months, my entire life changed. My entire health changed. When I got my bloods have never been better. And I just couldn't believe that 1 or 2 glasses of wine a week was having that impact on all the other pillars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I never knew, because it was so culturally and socially acceptable.
Yeah.
That I never knew that was the thing that was holding me back.
To that degree. Yeah.
To that degree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's alcohol is a neurotoxin. It's a carcinogen. It's like
it's a poison.
It's a poison. So yeah, definitely. I think if it was invented today, definitely could not go to market.
Yeah.
No.
With everything that we know about it now. So
I think 15, 20 years from now, we'll look at alcohol as we do cigarettes.
Yeah.
Like I think, and I hope we go that.
We're already there.
Yeah.
Honestly, like with this generation, we're already there.
They're not drinking.
I think social media will be the thing that comes after the people, the generations be like, you just looked at your phone all day, that they'll think that's wild, or at least I hope. Just one last question. We're almost out of time, but I wonder if there will ever be a 7th pillar that will be maybe environment or technology or living in the real world. I'm not sure what we would call that pillar, but
I think environment is an interesting one.
Environment.
There actually is already a 7th pillar suggested.
Okay.
Tell us.
And it is nature connection for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Like there's a lot of studies on this, that how the natural environment, the so-called green spaces and blue spaces as well, like seas and ponds and lakes and near water, that definitely improves improves depression and anxiety, those mental health issues, but also improves immunity and really leads to less like lowers cortisol levels, lowers inflammation in the body. And it's interesting, it's only requiring about 2 hours per week. So if you go out to nature every weekend for a couple hours, that effect can last for an entire week. There's a lot of studies showing like if you live close to parks and natural areas, these people are usually happier and healthier.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's something that, again, we think about lives 100 years ago with less urbanization in the cities, and maybe 150 years ago, really have to go that people really were much more connected to natural cycles of seasons, natural cycles of light,
Mm-hmm.
and they were constantly, everyone had their own garden or their own little farm, and they were exposed to these natural elements much more than in today's artificial lights and all the other environments that are just very concrete and man-made and built. And
going back to evolution, is our brain is designed to efficiently filter out all that information,
yes,
right, of nature. So it's very efficient processing that isn't demanding our attention, that isn't, and it's actually kind of everything can take a step down and relax a bit. Whereas you're totally right, urban settings, you're constantly on the ball. So I find that research with nature, I mean, and people, it's one of those things that, like, our parents probably always said, like, go play, go, and now science is absolutely showing.
Yeah, I crave it sometimes. And that's why, like, living in Singapore, I'm like, I just need to go up to McRitchie and just breathe. I need to be in the green. I need it to open up to the reservoir. I need to see open space. I need to see the sky.
I go to Bukit Timah Hill Sunday mornings, do my 2-hour hike there. For sure.
It's important.
Yeah.
I think one of the seminal studies, if I remember, was like post-surgical recovery. People who are in a window. So if you're recovering from surgery and there's a window beside you and you get to see out, they recover way faster than people who aren't. I think that was one of the first nature.
I think like the what you see from the hospital window, whether it's like a greenery or it's just another like wall, like a brick wall. This was, I think, the study set up.
Yeah.
So definitely if you see green, like trees and grass, and also people who watched comedies. So the positive mindset, laughter, it makes you actually the human mindset is very, very powerful in the sense that also for our health span, like if we do believe that we are healthy and we will be healthy, and we will be healthy when we grow older. Mm-hmm. These people really will be healthier when they're older.
Yeah.
So I don't think we have really discovered all the power of the mind yet. There's a lot more science to do on that.
Mm-hmm.
Placebo effect has always been there in pharmaceutical studies, and modern medicine is not really willing to look at that, I think, at the level that it should, to really explain like, when you're not taking that drug, you still get the benefit because you're thinking you're getting that benefit. So there are studies showing, for example, if people are given smoothies, but some people are told that this is very calorically rich and a lot of sugar and all that stuff, and then some people are told like, oh, this is very healthy smoothie and no sugar at all, like a very minimal amount, blah, blah, blah. And then you measure actually people's insulin secretion, even though it's like the same smoothie that they get. So insulin secretion usually corresponds to the amount of sugar that, you ingest. And then if you just think that smoothie is very, heavy on calories, a lot of sugar, you start to secrete more insulin.
Wow.
The ones that are getting the same smoothie and think like, oh, there's not that much sugar. I don't need that much insulin.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Yeah.
You know what? I want to do
frustrating as a scientist.
No, but actually, like, placebo is something we haven't covered on this podcast yet, and actually I think it would be a really
dark
interesting
topic in science
for another time, because we're now out of time. But I'd love to cover that another day. I think it'd be really interesting. Maybe we could get a couple of different doctors in and we have a little bit of a discussion on it. I think it'd be
especially
really
in the farm industry. You'll have to like blur out their face though, so they
someone who's left farmer is a whistleblower.
We are out of time, but we've had a lot of guests, but I think because you always get questions. People are always seeking to be healthy, and unfortunately, there's so much misinformation, bad information out there. like how can people get in touch with you? I guess we link it in the podcast and all that, because I think what listeners need to understand too is your approach is groundbreaking, especially in Singapore, to be honest, because it's a very traditional medical system where you're fighting, and I know you're fighting an uphill battle for lifestyle being a critical component. Doctors tend to, I heard this line, acquire customers. They don't treat patients. So yeah, it's very courageous what you're doing, and a huge believer. Also, I think your background knowledge and approach is more people need to hear about it, but probably a lot of academics and stuff, introverts, as we talked about.
Yes.
So we do need to link it all, because I think what you're doing is fantastic, and we definitely need this more in medicine. But we'll give our listeners all the information.
We will. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yes, really appreciate you having on.
To everyone still listening and watching, wherever you are, thank you so much. We'll be back next week with another episode. And as always, make every decision count. Bye.